this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and we are back with another news roundup and another special edition. This time focusing on Monterey Car Week 2025. We'll be back next week with some up-to-date news on some recently released products, but for this week, we're going to go out to the West Coast. If you're not familiar with the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, that classic car event has been around now for 75 years, and it is the kind of conclusion of Monterey Car Week, which is a great opportunity to see all sorts of classic vehicles and people that own them. And those tend to be kind of the 1% of the 1%. But there's been an interesting transition over the past few years. The old-fashioned global auto show, where every automaker shows up to, showcase all their cool new stuff, doesn't really happen anymore. And a lot of automakers are finding alternative ways to launch new products and to showcase new products. And it turns out that Monterey Car Week is actually not a bad place to do that. This is not an inexpensive event to attend as a civilian. And there's probably a fair amount of costs with setting up an event there as a company. But it is an opportunity if you're a high-end brand looking to attract the wealthy. This is a good place to show off your latest stuff. And we've seen this happening in Monterey for the past couple of years, and this year was no different. We saw kind of an interesting mix of both production and concept, both supercars and SUVs. And we'll start with an SUV, the Ford Bronco Roadster. Now, I know the first thing you're thinking that Ford is not a luxury brand, but the Bronco is an icon. And if you want to bring a trailer and look at the prices that classic Broncos are getting, having a Bronco is not out of place at a classic car event. Now, a few months ago, Ford did unveil a 60th anniversary Bronco. So this is kind of a special trim level. It's in Wimbledon white with some fancy bits in and out. This particular concept kind of takes the heritage idea one step further. It is a retro-inspired two-seat roadster. And if you go back to the original Bronco back from 1966, there was a similar variant as well. And it was talked about as kind of an off-road alternative to the Mustang. This concept has no roll cage, it has no doors, there's no rear seats. You can actually see the spare tires mounted in the rear seat area. The bumpers have been modified, and there's some cool low-back silver leather bucket seats inside, an interior that is otherwise stock, aside from a few bits of trim. And the powertrain is also off the shelf for Bronco as well. Now, you'll recall the Bronco's now been around for 4 years, and it was launched as an alternative to the Wrangler. They resurrected the Bronco nameplate. The sales still aren't where the Wrangler are, but it's still quite respectable, and it has now become a high-volume, iconic brand for Ford, and to the point where it's even spawned a more affordable Bronco Sport sibling. Now, Ford has said, we are not going to do this kind of vehicle. I would not be surprised to see some of the third-party customization houses out there come up with some of the bits and pieces to allow your Bronco owner with a little extra money on the side to build their own roadster, as it were. I certainly would not mind a little die-cast model of this on my desk, although, of course, I don't really have room for it. Continuing in SUVs, we have the Acura RSX, and this is, unlike the Bronco Roadster, a production vehicle. You might recall when the Ford Mustang Mach-E was unveiled several years back, a lot of people's heads exploded at the notion of putting the Mustang badge on an SUV. And then Mitsubishi followed suit with the Eclipse as the Eclipse crossover. And now we have the RSX, which is being reborn not as a sports car, but as an SUV. Last year, there was the Performance EV concept, and if you look at the concept in this production vehicle, you'll see a visual relationship. It does have the same coupe-like profile. It has a smaller, more production-ready 21-inch wheels, and under the skin, the RSX, when it goes into production early next year, we use Osmo OS, the operating system that Honda has developed for their next generation of EVs. This is actually Acura's first internally developed EV. If you go into an Acura showroom right now, you will see the ZDX. The ZDX is a rebodied Cadillac Lyric. And the assumption is the RSX will be the first entry off of Honda's new Zero Series platform. This was previewed with a saloon concept and an SUV at CES this year. And those vehicles are expected to go on sale next year. It's expected to be an 800-volt architecture as well, which bodes well for a charging standpoint. And it'll compete with the upcoming BMW iX3 and the Mercedes GLC EQ, both of which we will see at IAA in Munich in a few weeks. Acura has also confirmed, right after they unveiled this vehicle, that the planned vision of an all-electric future is no longer in the works. They have decided to add hybrids to the portfolio. They have had hybrids in the past, and those were kind of phased out, and Acura was planning to go straight to EVs. and now that is no longer the case. And we know that Honda's been working on some updated hybrid technology, so we can expect to see that as well. So again, this vehicle goes on sale early next year. We don't really have any technical specs. We also don't even have an interior yet, so we're a little far away, but at least you get an idea of what the outside looks like. We have a similar story with the Infiniti QX65 monograph. This was labeled a concept, but it is 95% real. And we've been tracking this for at least a couple of years. Infiniti has not made a secret that they were working on something like this. It's expected to go into production later this year as a new entry in Infiniti's, well, to be honest, shrinking portfolio. The Q50 went out of production last year, and the QX50 and the QX55 will leave production this year. So Infiniti dealers would love to have some new product to sell, and this is one of them. As the name suggests, this is a derivative of the existing Infiniti QX60, so it is an SUV coupe, which means it targets vehicles like the Mercedes GLE Coupe, the BMW X6, and the Genesis GV80 Coupe. Unfortunately, those vehicles are front-engine rear drive. This is a transverse front-drive all-wheel drive setup, so you're a bit hampered from a proportional standpoint and maybe from a ride handling standpoint, because you don't get that classic rear drive proportion and weight balance. Under the hood is a 268 horsepower, 2-liter variable compression turbo 4-cylinder engine. Now that engine has been used on other Infiniti products before, and to be honest, it seems a little underwhelming in a segment that has much higher levels of horsepower and also 6-cylinder, and in some cases 8-cylinder engines as well. So this is, better than a sharp stick in the eye, but it's not likely to be a super high volume vehicle for Infiniti. It is stylish enough to maybe get some people into the showroom. Nissan has been talking a lot about their vision for the future, but we have not heard a lot about Infiniti's vision, whether it's electric or hybrid or some combination thereof. And so I guess we're waiting to see more information on what's coming from Infiniti and what they're going to do to keep the dealers in business, because an empty showroom is really not going to attract a lot of buyers. Moving back into concepts, we have the Cadillac Elevated Velocity. If you recall, last year's Monterey Car Week, Cadillac showed the opulent Velocity sports car concept. Elevated Velocity, as you might expect from the name, is, well, elevated. It's taller. It is more of an SUV coupe, which curiously is a body style that does not exist anywhere in Cadillac's portfolio. They have a number of SUVs, but all of them are fairly conventionally proportioned with enough room in the back for, 2 and 3 people. This is a gull-wing vehicle, as you see in the upper right photo there. It features 24-inch wheels and Mondrian graphics in the glass that we've seen in newer Cadillac EVs like the Lyriq and the Optic. The interior is quite stunning in Morello red Napa leather. There's a steering yoke as opposed to a steering wheel. And you'll note there is a small display in the center of the steering yoke. There's a second crystal-inspired display on the center console as well. There is an elevate mode, which essentially sounds rather like autonomous. It retracts both the steering wheel and the pedals. And, in the past, Cadillac has offered night vision on some of their vehicles. The Elevated Velocity has sand vision, which improves your visibility during a sandstorm. Cadillac has never done a real off-road type vehicle. And while we've seen, we've heard rumors that Audi is getting a vehicle off the Scout platform, that BMW is working on a more off-road oriented vehicle to take on Range Rover and Land Rover, Cadillac has yet to go down that road. So we certainly don't expect the Elevated Velocity as we see it here to go into production, but some of the design cues that we see may impact the next generation of Cadillac SUVs. And we'll close out SUVs with something fun and interesting, the Meyers Manx LFG. If you are not familiar with the original Meyers Manx, this was a Beetle-based dune buggy from the 1960s, and the company that launched that vehicle, Meyers, rebooted itself 3 years ago with the fully electric Manx 2.0 EV. That vehicle looked a lot like the original Beetle-based model, but happened to be fully electric. Now they've gone sort of sideways with the LFG. It is a carbon-bodied, gullwing-doored internal combustion off-road performance machine. It is an all-wheel drive 2-seater. It has a 4-liter flat 6 engine from Porsche tuner Tuthill out of the UK, and it's connected to a 6-speed sequential gearbox. So yes, even though a lot of folks are going towards EVs, Meyers has decided to add an additional internal combustion variant here. There are adjustable dampers and hydraulic bump stops to support off-road performance. And by the way, if you are not familiar with the term LFG, it stands for Let's Effing Go. So this is definitely designed to be a fun-to-drive vehicle. This is definitely an alternative to some of the more unusual off-road oriented sports cars that are out there, like the Porsche 911 Dakar and the Lamborghini Huracan Storado. No word yet on price or production volumes, but it certainly, if you're the sort of person that already has a dozen vehicles, this would be a fun additional vehicle to add to the portfolio. Let's switch gears into sports cars with the Corvette CX concept, and that's CX. Again, as in C10, as in X is the Roman numeral for 10. This is the third of three concepts that have been shown this year. One was developed in the UK and one in California. This one came out of the Warren, Michigan design studios. It is a 2,000 horsepower all-wheel drive electric supercar. It sits a whopping 41 inches tall. There are built-in fans to pull air in to generate downforce and manage airflow over the rear diffuser. And as we saw with the California concept, it's a jet-inspired canopy that flips forward for easy and frankly more dramatic entry and exit. The steering wheel inside includes an integrated display, not unlike the Cadillac elevated velocity concept, and it's augmented by a sizable head-up display as well. Now, the previous concepts, Chevrolet made it very clear that they were not going to build those. With this particular concept, they said it serves as an inspiration to inform Corvette design language. So, again, we don't expect them to build this vehicle as is for the 9th or 10th generation Corvette, but we might see some of the cues here as the vehicle retains its mid-engine proportion. Remember that GM has previously said that by 2035, their light-duty portfolio will be all electric. It's not clear if they're still sticking to that or not, but if they do, they have not yet carved out an exclusion for the Corvette, which means that within 9 years, there will be an electric Corvette in the market. So it might bear some of the cues that you see here. Somewhat closer to reality is the Lexus Sport Concept. Back in 2021, Lexus showed us an electrified sport concept as part of a larger Vision EV portfolio. And then at the Goodwood Festival of Speed this year in June, Toyota drove a camouflage GT concept up the hill, which was said to preview a track car. This is the Lexus version, it appears, of that Toyota, and is said to preview a successor to the legendary LFA supercar. Not a lot of technical details here, and again, like some of the other vehicles you've seen in this episode, no interior photos available. But the roof does feature 4 cooling fans, which is kind of interesting. The production launch, well, it depends on who you talk to. And the powertrain also depends on who you talk to as well. There's a lot of different stories out there. It may be as early as late next year. It could be later than that as Lexus kind of shuffles some things around. Some folks have suggested this will have a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 hybrid. Others have said it will be electric. Others have said it'll offer both. So we're not entirely sure yet. Lexus continues to be the most successful of the 3 Japanese luxury brands, and they would love to play in the same space as BMW, Audi, and Mercedes, and they're not quite there yet. But to do that, it does help to have a halo vehicle to showcase your engineering prowess, and a production version of this vehicle could wind up doing it. We'll have to wait and see when the actual production vehicle hits the streets. And finally, we will finish with a very, very low production volume vehicle. You might remember I spoke last week about 2 weeks ago about the Bugatti Brouillard, which is their one-of-one vehicle derived from the Bugatti Mistral. Lamborghini is going down a similar route here with the Fenomeno. It is a few off. So they will build more than one Phenomenos, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but it follows in the footsteps of other low-volume Lamborghinis like the Centenario, the Revuelto, and the Fenomeno. This is a $3.5 million vehicle. It is essentially a rebodied Revuelto. So just as Bugatti created their one-off by rebodying a Mistral, Lamborghini has done something very similar here. The interior, as with Bugatti, is largely carried over from the production Lamborghini. And the V12 plug-in hybrid powertrain is also largely carried over. They have tuned it just a little to make this the most powerful road-going Lamborghini ever. The new exterior design features a vented hood, a carbon fiber engine cover, and centrally placed exhaust pipes. And it turns out only 29 lucky buyers will be able to purchase one of these. It should be noted that Ferrari and Bentley have said that their bespoke divisions contribute significantly to their bottom line. So Lamborghini has already been doing stuff along these lines, and it's not surprising to see them continue, especially as other brands start to raise the bar with even more unique and bespoke vehicles. So, if you ever get to see a Fenomeno in person, consider yourself extremely lucky. And that about wraps things up for this week in Auto Perspectives and our news roundup and our look at Monterey Car Week 2025. If you liked what you see and hear, please subscribe and share. And if you want to learn more about Auto Perspectives and visit the blog, you can check us out at autoperspectives.net. We will be back with our kind of more normally formatted episode next week. And until then, take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.